Every time you choose comfort over discipline, you're training yourself to be average. Not once, not twice, but every single day. You feel it, don't you? That quiet guilt when you waste hours scrolling. That voice in your head telling you that you could be doing more. That frustration of knowing you're capable of greatness, but still staying stuck. And the worst part? It doesn't hurt enough right now to force you to change. So you keep delaying. Keep choosing comfort. Keep telling yourself you'll fix it tomorrow. But one day, that tomorrow runs out. And you wake up, not tired, not confused, but empty. Empty because deep down, you know the truth. You had the potential. You had the time. You had the opportunity. But you didn't have the self-control. You never became the man you were supposed to be. Marcus Aurelius warned. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Stay with me till the end, because this might be the wake-up call you need. 1. Control your desires or they will control you. Most men don't lack discipline. They lack control over their desires. That's the truth no one wants to admit. Because it's easier to say, I need motivation. I'm just tired. I'll start tomorrow. But the real problem? You're being controlled from the inside. Food, lust, comfort, validation. These aren't just habits. They're chains. And the more you give into them, the tighter those chains become. Epictetus said, No man is free who is not master of himself. Read that again. Because this is where most men misunderstand freedom. They think freedom is doing whatever they want, eating whatever they crave, chasing every urge, avoiding anything uncomfortable. But that's not freedom. That's slavery, disguised as pleasure. Real freedom? Is saying no when everything inside you is screaming yes. It's walking away from distractions. Even when they're easy. Even when they're tempting. Even when no one is watching. Because self-control is not about restriction. It's about power. And right now, most men have none. Think about your daily life. You wake up, and instead of getting up immediately you scroll. You tell yourself it's just 5 minutes, but it turns into 30. You plan to work, but you get distracted. You open one app, then another, then another. You say you'll eat clean. But one craving hits, and suddenly your discipline disappears. You say you'll stay focused. But the moment it gets hard, you escape into comfort. This is how it happens. Not in big, dramatic failures, but in small, repeated decisions. And every time you give in, you weaken your ability to resist the next time. That's how desire works. It trains you. Every yes to weakness becomes a habit. Every moment of indulgence becomes your default. And slowly, without realizing it, you lose control. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Until one day, you wake up and realize you don't run your life anymore. Your desires do. And here's the dangerous part. Desires don't care about your future. They don't care about your goals. They don't care about your potential. They don't care about the man you're trying to become. They only care about now. Now pleasure. Now comfort. Now relief. But every time you choose now, you sacrifice your future. That's the trade most men make, without even realizing it. And over time, it costs them everything. Their discipline, their confidence, their respect, their purpose. Because a man who can't control his desires cannot build a powerful life. It's impossible. You cannot become strong while constantly giving in to weakness. You cannot become focused while constantly chasing distraction. You cannot become disciplined while constantly choosing comfort. So the question is, how do you take control back? It starts with awareness. You have to start noticing your patterns, not judging them, not excusing them, but seeing them clearly. When the urge hits, pause. Don't react immediately. That moment, right there. That's where your power lives. Because most people don't pause. They react. Automatically. Emotionally. Without thinking. But you're going to be different. You're going to create space between the urge and the action. And in that space, you make a choice. Not based on how you feel, but based on who you want to become. That's self-control. Not perfection. Not constant discipline. But the ability to choose consciously. And the more you practice this, the stronger you become. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your mind will resist. Your body will push back. Your habits will fight you. Because you're breaking a pattern. But that discomfort? That's growth. That's transformation. That's you taking your power back. And slowly, something changes. You stop reacting. You start choosing. You stop chasing pleasure. You start building discipline. You stop being controlled. And you become the one in control. That's when everything shifts. Your focus improves. Your confidence grows. Your actions align with your goals. Because now, you're not driven by desire. You're driven by purpose. And that's what separates average men from disciplined men. Average men follow their feelings. Disciplined men control them. Average men chase comfort. Disciplined men embrace discomfort. Average men react. Disciplined men decide. So every time you feel that urge to scroll, to quit, to indulge, to delay, ask yourself one question. Who's in control right now? Because your answer is shaping your future. And if this hits you, wait till you hear point 3. That's where most men fail completely. 2. Stop negotiating with weakness. Every time you say, "I'll do it later," you're negotiating with weakness. And weakness always wins those conversations. Always. Because weakness doesn't need to convince you to fail forever. It just needs to convince you to delay. Just once. Start tomorrow. Take a break. You deserve this. It's not that serious. It sounds harmless. It sounds reasonable. But that's how it gets you. Not through force, but through persuasion. And the more you listen to it, the louder it becomes, until it starts to feel like your own voice. But it's not. It's the voice of comfort. The voice of avoidance. The voice that keeps you exactly where you are. And here's the truth most men don't realize. Every time you delay, you weaken your discipline. Because self-control is not built in big moments. It's built in small decisions. The moment you don't feel like doing it, but you do it anyway. That's where discipline is created. Not when you're motivated. Not when it's easy. Not when you feel good. But when you don't want to. And you still act. That's the difference. But most men never reach that point. Because they negotiate. They sit there, going back and forth in their mind. I should do it. But I don't feel like it. I'll do it later. Maybe after this. And just like that, the moment passes. The opportunity is gone. And weakness wins again. This is how average lives are built. Not through failure, but through hesitation. Through delay. Through indecision. Through constant negotiation. And over time, it becomes your identity. You become the guy who starts but doesn't finish. Plans but doesn't act. Wants more, but does nothing about it. And deep down, you know it. That's where the frustration comes from. That's why you feel stuck. Because you're not lazy. You're just stuck in a loop. A loop of thinking, instead of doing. And the longer you stay in that loop, the harder it becomes to break. Because your brain adapts. It gets used to delay. Used to comfort. Used to avoidance. So when it's time to act, it resists even more. That's why it feels harder over time. Not easier. Because you've trained yourself to hesitate. But here's the shift that changes everything. Stop negotiating. Completely. No debate. No discussion. No delay. When it's time to act, you act. Immediately. Before your mind has time to interfere. Because the longer you think, the weaker you become. Action is power. Thinking, without action, is a trap. And most men are stuck in it. They overthink everything. They wait for the perfect moment. They wait to feel ready. But that moment never comes. Because readiness is a lie. You don't feel ready. You become ready by acting. That's how self-control is built. Not by waiting, but by moving. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when you don't feel like it. Especially then. Because those are the moments that matter most. Those are the moments that define you. Those are the moments where you either build discipline or reinforce weakness. There is no neutral. Every decision moves you forward or holds you back. So the next time you catch yourself saying, "I'll do it later," stop. Interrupt that thought immediately. Replace it with, "Do it now." No emotion. No hesitation. No negotiation. Just action. Because discipline is not a feeling. It's a standard. And once you raise that standard, everything changes. You become faster, sharper, more decisive. You stop wasting time. You stop overthinking. You stop delaying your own growth. And that's when you start separating yourself from the average. Because average men hesitate. Average men delay. Average men negotiate with weakness. But disciplined men? They act. Immediately. Consistently. Without excuses. And that's why they win. But here's where it gets dangerous. Most men don't even realize they're doing this. 3. Embrace discomfort daily. This is where men break. Comfort is the enemy of greatness. Not because comfort is bad, but because too much of it makes you weak. And most men today? They are drowning in comfort. Everything is easy. Everything is instant. Everything is designed to keep you relaxed, entertained, and distracted. No struggle. No resistance. No pressure. And that's exactly the problem. Because a man who never faces discomfort never grows. Cold showers. Hard work. Silence. Discipline. These aren't punishments. They are tools. Tools that sharpen your mind. Tools that strengthen your will. Tools that build the version of you most men will never become. But here's where men break. The moment it gets uncomfortable. The moment it gets hard. They stop. The moment they feel resistance. They retreat. The moment things aren't easy anymore. They look for escape. And that's why they stay average. Because greatness is built in discomfort. Not once. Not occasionally. But daily. Every single day, you are given a choice. Comfort or growth. And most men? They choose comfort, without even thinking. They wake up tired, and stay in bed. They feel resistance, and avoid the task. They get uncomfortable, and distract themselves. And just like that, another day passes, with no progress. But the disciplined man? He does the opposite. He leans into discomfort. On purpose. Not because he enjoys pain, but because he understands what it creates. Strength. Focus. Resilience. He takes the cold shower, even when his body resists. He does the work, even when his mind complains. He stays focused, even when distractions call. Because he knows something most men ignore. Discomfort is temporary. But growth is permanent. And every time you choose discomfort, you build something inside you. Something powerful. Something unshakable. You build the ability to act, regardless of how you feel. That's what separates disciplined men from average ones. Average men act based on emotion. Disciplined men act based on principle. And that's where Stoicism comes in. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Notice what he's saying. Not, do what feels good. Not, do what is easy. Do what is right. Even when it's hard. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when no one is watching. That's discipline. That's self-control. That's power. But let's be real for a moment. Discomfort is not easy. Your body will resist it. Your mind will fight it. Your habits will reject it. You'll feel tired. You'll feel unmotivated. You'll feel like quitting. That's normal. That's part of the process. Because you're breaking a pattern. You're rewiring your mind. You're stepping out of the version of yourself that chose comfort. And stepping into the version that chooses growth. And that transition? It's uncomfortable. But that's exactly how you know you're on the right path. Because comfort keeps you the same. Discomfort changes you. So instead of avoiding it, start seeking it. Not extreme pain. Not burnout. But controlled discomfort. Do one hard thing every day. Something you don't feel like doing. Something that challenges you. Something that pushes you slightly beyond your limits. That's how you build discipline. Not in one big moment, but in small, consistent acts. And over time, something shifts. You stop fearing discomfort. You start embracing it. You stop avoiding challenges. You start chasing growth. You stop breaking under pressure. And you start building strength from it. That's when you become dangerous. Because now, nothing controls you. Not your feelings. Not your environment. Not your circumstances. You act because you decide to act. And that's rare. That's powerful. That's the mindset of a man who refuses to stay average. Like, subscribe, and comment below if you're still watching, because this is where transformation begins. And if you think this is enough, point 4 will challenge how you see your own mind. 4. Kill instant gratification. The average man lives for now. The disciplined man lives for the future. That's the difference. Not intelligence. Not talent. Not luck. Time perspective. Because every decision you make is either feeding your present or building your future. And most men? They choose the present. Every time. Quick pleasure. Easy dopamine. Instant satisfaction. Scrolling. Junk food. Endless entertainment. Validation from others. It feels good, in the moment. But that feeling? It comes at a cost. Because every time you choose quick pleasure, you sacrifice long-term power. You weaken your focus. You reduce your discipline. You delay your growth. And the worst part? You don't feel the damage immediately. That's what makes it dangerous. Because if it hurt instantly, you would stop. But it doesn't. It feels good now. And costs you later. That's the trap of instant gratification. It rewards you in the present, while quietly destroying your future. And most men are stuck in it. Not because they're weak, but because they're conditioned. Everything around you is designed to keep you addicted. Fast content. Fast food. Fast pleasure. No waiting. No effort. No resistance. Just consume. And over time, your brain adapts. It starts craving speed. Craving ease. Craving constant stimulation. So when it's time to focus, when it's time to work, when it's time to delay gratification, it struggles. Because it's no longer trained for patience. It's trained for pleasure. That's why discipline feels hard. Not because you can't do it, but because you've been conditioned not to. But here's the truth. If you want to master self-control and escape the average life, you must break this cycle. You must learn to delay gratification. Again and again. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it's boring. Even when it feels like nothing is happening. Because that's where real growth happens. In the invisible moments. When no one is watching. When there's no reward. When there's no immediate result. That's where discipline is built. That's where self-control is strengthened. That's where your future is created. Seneca taught that. No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity. In other words, if you get too comfortable with pleasure, you become weak when it's taken away. That's why you must train yourself. Deny small pleasures. Delay rewards. Resist impulses. Not forever, but intentionally. Because every time you delay gratification, you build power. The power to focus. The power to endure. The power to stay committed, even when results are slow. And that's what most men lack. They start, but they don't continue. They try, but they don't persist. Because they expect fast results. And when they don't get them, they quit. That's why they stay average. Because they never stay long enough to see progress. But you're going to be different. You're going to train your mind to wait. To work, without immediate reward. To stay disciplined, without validation. To keep going, even when it feels slow. Because you understand something powerful. The best things in life take time. And the man who can wait, while continuing to work, will always outperform the man who seeks quick results. So the next time you feel the urge to check your phone, to quit early, to take the easy path, pause and ask yourself, am I choosing pleasure or power? Because that one decision, repeated daily, determines your entire life. But here's the truth most won't tell you. 5. Build a strong inner voice. You have two voices. One that wants comfort. One that demands discipline. And whether you realize it or not, you listen to one of them every single day. The one you listen to becomes your life. Because your actions don't just come from your habits. They come from your thoughts. From that quiet voice in your head. The one that speaks when no one else is around. The one that tells you, just relax, you deserve it. Skip it today, it's not that serious. You'll do it tomorrow. Or, get up. Do the work. Stay focused. Finish what you started. Two voices. Two directions. Two completely different lives. And most men? They don't even realize they're choosing. They think their behavior is automatic. They think their lack of discipline is just who they are. But that's not true. They've just trained the wrong voice. They've fed the voice of comfort and ignored the voice of discipline until the weak voice became louder and the strong voice became silent. That's how it happens. Not overnight, but gradually. Every time you give in, you strengthen the weak voice. Every time you delay, you give it more authority. Every time you avoid discomfort, you confirm its power. And slowly, it becomes your default. So when it's time to act, you don't even argue anymore. You just follow it. Automatically. That's why so many men feel stuck. It's not that they don't know what to do. It's that their inner voice won't let them do it. And here's the dangerous part. Your inner voice doesn't just control your actions. It shapes your identity. If your inner voice is weak, you start seeing yourself as weak. If your inner voice complains, you start living a life of excuses. If your inner voice avoids responsibility, you start avoiding growth. That's why this is so important. Because if you don't take control of your inner voice, it will take control of you. Seneca believed that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Think about that. Most of the resistance you feel, most of the fear, most of the hesitation, it's not real. It's created by your mind. Your inner voice exaggerates difficulty. It magnifies discomfort. It makes simple tasks feel overwhelming. Not because they are, but because it's trying to keep you comfortable, safe, still, unchanged. But that safety? It's costing you your growth. So how do you change it? You don't silence the weak voice. You override it. You build a stronger one. A voice that leads, A voice that commands. A voice that doesn't ask how you feel, but tells you what to do. And this doesn't happen by accident. It happens through repetition. Every time you feel resistance and act anyway, you strengthen the disciplined voice. Every time you ignore excuses and follow through, you give it more power. Every time you do what is hard instead of what is easy, you train it to lead. At first, it will feel unnatural. You'll still hear the weak voice. Loud, persistent, convincing. But now, there's another voice. Stronger, clearer, more focused. And the more you listen to it, the louder it becomes. Until one day, it becomes your default. You don't argue anymore. You don't hesitate. You don't negotiate. You just act. Because your inner voice no longer asks for permission. It gives commands. And that's when everything changes. Your confidence increases. Your discipline becomes consistent. Your actions align with your goals. Because now, you're not being pulled in two directions. You're being led from within. And that's real power. Not external validation. Not motivation. Not inspiration. Internal control. A strong inner voice that keeps you focused. Keeps you disciplined. Keeps you moving forward, no matter what. So the next time you hear that voice telling you to quit, to delay, to avoid, don't fight it. Just don't follow it. Instead, respond with action. Because every time you act against weakness, you strengthen discipline. And every time you strengthen discipline, you move further away from average. Train your inner voice to lead, not complain. Rehook. But even strong men fall, and here's why. 6. Remove triggers that destroy discipline. Your environment shapes your behavior, whether you accept it or not. Because you are not just a product of your mindset. You are a product of what surrounds you. Distractions, social media, toxic people. These aren't just annoyances. They are triggers. Triggers that destroy discipline, quietly, consistently, every single day. And most men? They underestimate this completely. They think discipline is just willpower. Just focus. Just try harder. Just be stronger. But here's the truth. You can't win a constant battle against your environment. Not long term. Because willpower is limited. But your environment is constant. If you're surrounded by distractions, you will get distracted. If you're surrounded by negativity, you will lose focus. If you're surrounded by comfort, you will become comfortable. It's not weakness. It's influence. And the more you ignore it, the more it controls you. Think about your daily environment. Your phone is always near you. Notifications constantly pulling your attention. Endless content designed to keep you hooked. You sit down to work, and within minutes, you're distracted. Not because you're lazy, but because your environment is working against you. Then there are people. People who don't take discipline seriously. People who normalize laziness. People who distract you from your goals. They don't push you forward. They pull you back. And slowly, you start adapting to them. Lowering your standards. Reducing your effort. Accepting less from yourself. That's how discipline dies. Not in one moment, but through constant exposure to the wrong environment. So if you're serious about mastering self-control, you have to take this seriously. Because you cannot build a focused life in a distracted environment. You cannot build discipline in a space filled with temptation. You cannot become strong while constantly surrounded by weakness. So what do? You take control. You remove the triggers. Not all at once, but intentionally. Start with the obvious. Limit your screen time. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Create boundaries with your phone. Because every distraction you remove gives you more control. Then look at your space. Is it clean? Is it focused? Is it designed for discipline or comfort? Your environment should support your goals, not fight against them. And then, the hardest part. People. Not everyone deserves access to your time, your energy, your focus. If someone constantly distracts you, pulls you away from your goals, encourages weakness, you have to create distance. Not out of hate, but out of discipline. Because your future matters more than temporary comfort. And here's what most men don't realize. When you remove negative triggers, you don't just avoid distraction. You make discipline easier. You reduce resistance. You increase focus. You create momentum. Because now, you're not fighting your environment. You're working with it. And that changes everything. Instead of relying on willpower, you rely on structure. Instead of constant struggle, you create flow. Instead of forcing discipline, you allow it to happen naturally. That's the power of environment. It either drains you or supports you. And once you take control of it, you take control of your life. Because now, there's less distraction, less temptation, less resistance, and more focus, more clarity, more discipline. So stop trying to be strong in a weak environment. Change the environment, and strength will follow. Because in the end, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your environment. Control your environment, or it will control you. Now listen carefully, because point 7 is where most men lose the battle entirely. 7. Discipline is identity, not action. Most men treat discipline like something they do, something temporary, something they try, and stop when it gets hard. I'll be disciplined today. I'll try to stay focused. I'll do my best. But that's the problem. Discipline is not something you try. It's something you become. Because when discipline is just an action, it depends on your mood, on your energy, on your motivation, on how you feel in that moment. And feelings? They are unreliable. They change constantly. Some days you feel strong. Some days you feel weak. Some days you feel focused. Some days you feel distracted. So if your discipline depends on how you feel, it will never be consistent. And that's why most men fail. Not because they don't know what to do, but because they don't see discipline as part of who they are. They treat it like an option. Something they can turn on and off. But real men? They treat discipline like identity. I am disciplined. Not, I try to be disciplined. And that one shift changes everything. Because identity doesn't negotiate. Identity doesn't depend on feelings. Identity is fixed. If you believe you are disciplined, then your actions must align with that belief. Even when it's hard. Even when you're tired. Even when you don't feel like it. Because anything else would contradict who you are. That's the power of identity. It removes the debate. It removes the hesitation. It removes the question of, should I? Because the answer is already decided. This is what most men are missing. They're trying to change their actions without changing their identity. They say they want discipline, but deep down, they still see themselves as inconsistent, as someone who quits, as someone who delays, as someone who lacks control. And that belief? It controls everything. Because no matter how hard you try, you will always act in alignment with who you believe you are. So if you believe you are weak, you will find ways to prove it. If you believe you are undisciplined, you will act accordingly, even if you don't want to. That's why this shift is so important. You have to redefine yourself. Not based on your past. Not based on your failures. But based on who you choose to become. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." That's the formula. Decide who you are. Then act accordingly. Not the other way around. Because most men wait to feel disciplined before they act disciplined. But that's backwards. You act disciplined because that's who you are. Even when it's hard. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when no one is watching. And every time you act in alignment with that identity, you reinforce it. You make it stronger. You make it real. At first, it might feel fake. Like you're pretending. Like you're forcing it. But that's normal. Because you're breaking an old identity and building a new one. And that takes repetition. Consistency. Proof. You prove it to yourself, again and again, through action. You wake up early, even when you don't feel like it. You do the work, even when it's hard. You stay focused, even when distractions are everywhere. And each time, you send a message to your mind. This is who I am. Not who you want to be. Not who you hope to become. Who you are. And over time, it sticks. It becomes automatic. You don't think about being disciplined. You just are. That's when it becomes powerful. Because now, discipline is not something you do occasionally. It's something you live. Every day. In every decision. In every action. That's what separates powerful men from average ones. Average men rely on motivation. Disciplined men rely on identity. Average men start and stop. Disciplined men stay consistent. Average men try. Disciplined men are. So if you're serious about mastering self-control and escaping the average life, you need to make this shift. Stop saying, I'll try. Start saying, I am disciplined. I am focused. I am in control. And then prove it through action. Like, subscribe, and comment below. I am disciplined. If you're serious about escaping the average life. And finally, the most important truth of all. 8. Master yourself, or be controlled forever. This is the ultimate Stoic mindset for men. The truth most people avoid. Because it's uncomfortable. Because it demands responsibility. Because it leaves no room for excuses. Either you control your mind, or your mind controls you. There is no middle ground. You're either in charge, or you're being led. By your emotions. By your habits. By your environment. By your desires. And most men? They think they're in control. But look closer. They react emotionally. They give in to urges. They get distracted easily. They avoid discomfort. That's not control. That's submission. Submission to impulses. Submission to comfort. Submission to weakness. And the worst part? It feels normal. Because they've been living like that for so long. They don't even question it. But you're here because something feels off. Because deep down, you know you're capable of more. More discipline. More focus. More control. But potential means nothing without mastery. Because potential without control leads to frustration. You know what to do. But you don't do it. You have goals. But you don't follow through. You want more. But you stay the same. That's what happens when you don't master yourself. Your mind becomes your biggest obstacle. It convinces you to delay. It pushes you toward comfort. It pulls you away from growth. And if you don't take control, it will keep doing that, forever. That's why this is the most important truth. Self-mastery is not optional. It's the foundation of everything. Your success. Your discipline. Your confidence. Your life. Because everything starts in the mind. Every habit, every thought, every action either builds discipline or destroys it. There is no neutral. Every time you choose focus, you build control. Every time you choose distraction, you weaken it. Every time you act with discipline, you strengthen your mind. Every time you give in, you lose ground. And over time, these choices compound. They shape who you become. A man in control. Or a man controlled. That's the real battle. Not external. Internal. And it's happening every single day. In the small moments. When you wake up. When you feel resistance. When you face discomfort. When you're tempted to quit. Those are the moments that matter. Those are the moments where you either master yourself or lose control. And here's what most men don't realize. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to force you to be disciplined. No one is going to make you focused. No one is going to push you to your potential. That responsibility? It's yours. Fully. Completely. And that's what makes it powerful. Because if it's your responsibility, it's also your power. You can change. You can improve. You can take control. But only if you decide to. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Because every day you delay, you reinforce the version of yourself you're trying to escape. And one day, if you don't act, that version becomes permanent. That's how men stay average. Not because they can't change, but because they never take control. So the question is simple. Are you going to master yourself? Or be controlled forever? Because your answer is not in your words. It's in your actions. Every single day. And that's the difference between a powerful man and an average one. Finally, at the end of the day, mastering self-control isn't easy. It's not comfortable. It's not something you do once and forget. It's a daily battle. A battle against your impulses, your habits, your excuses, and the version of you that wants to stay the same. But staying average? That's even harder. Because it comes with something far worse than discomfort. Regret. The regret of wasted time. The regret of missed opportunities. The regret of knowing, deep down, you could have been more disciplined, more focused, more in control. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. So every thought you entertain, every action you take, every habit you repeat, you are shaping the man you become. Not someday, but right now. You're either building a disciplined mind or reinforcing an average one. There is no in between. So choose carefully. Choose discipline when it's hard. Choose control when it's uncomfortable. Choose growth when it would be easier to stay the same. Because every time you choose the harder path, you step closer to the man you were meant to be. And every time you don't, you drift further away. But here's the truth. It's not too late. Not today. Not right now. You can decide. You can take control. You can shift your mindset. You can start building real discipline from this moment forward. No waiting. No excuses. No more tomorrow. Like, subscribe, and comment below. And no more average. And stay with me on this journey. Because this isn't just motivation. This is transformation. And the man you become from here is entirely up to you.